Okay, so a few thoughts about Titus Groan by Mervyn Peake. So this book, wow, I didn't know this book existed until recently. And I went into it basically knowing nothing. I was just reading it because it was on a list of books that I was kind of working my way through. And so I started it, and at first it was kind of whatever, seemed a little dry. But then pretty quickly, pretty quickly, I realized this author has a pretty unique writing style that is very, very eloquent in a way, but also very funny. So many turns of phrases that you'll lose count after half a chapter. So, I mean, just my ultimate takeaways on this book are basically that the plot, I could kind of take it or leave it, the plot itself. But you don't read this book for the plot. You read this book for the characters, the array of eccentric characters in this Gothic castle, which is the setting of the book. Castle is called Gormenghast, so it's the first book in the Gormenghast trilogy. So you read it for the eccentric characters, and you read it for the very clever descriptions and very interesting vocab and wording that the author uses to describe the characters and their interactions with each other. So that made it worth it. So I started out thinking, whatever, not super excited, but as I went along, I just wanted to keep reading just because the writing is so interesting and unique. So I think you'll find that the writing is very interesting. And if you don't want to read the whole book, I'd say read even just the first few chapters just to get a taste of it. So the descriptions of some of these characters, like Mr. Flay, who is he's the assistant to the Earl of Gormenghast, and then Mr. Swelter, who's the chief chef or cook in the kitchen, and they have kind of a rivalry. And then my favorite character is Dr. Prunesqualler. Dr. Prunesqualler is the doctor, as you can tell. But the thing about him is he introduces this idea that he constantly like throws in laughter when he's talking. So he'll say whatever he's going to say and ha 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 ha. And I was listening to an audiobook, and the reader's name is Simon Vance, and he does such a good job with that kind of stuff. So he'll say whatever and then ha 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 constantly, and then different varieties of laughter and so forth. That's just one little taste of it. But yeah, if you read this book, you will love some of the characters and find it, the way it's written, hilarious and kind of enlightening. And I think this book was written about 5 to 8, somewhere between 5 and 8 years before Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. And so it was kind of back in that era before fantasy really took off, but it's called a fantasy book just because of the setting, but it's not really fantastical. All right, so those are my overall thoughts on Titus Groan by Mervyn Peake. Definitely check it out at least a little, even just to get a taste.